Hey everybody, I thought I'd show you today what I'm doing for a seed starting mix. But before I get too far into it, I want to remember to mention Blake Kirby over at Daddy Kirb's farm. Blake is a really great guy, and I talk to him on the side, behind the scenes, all the time, and he's always willing to let me bounce ideas off of him and share with me what's going on with his farm, and it always helps me decide how I'm going to approach something on my property. So if you're not already a member, make sure you head over to Blake's channel and give him a subscription and help boost what he's doing and give him support for me. I appreciate it. So what are we doing for the mix here? It's really quite simple. Blake and I went through the same permaculture course last year, and one of the mixes that was touted was to do a simple mixture of 1 part compost and 1 part coarse sand. And I want to give that a try this year, so that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to take one mix. This is washed river sand and 1 part of the sifted compost that I showed you in a previous video. And I'm just going to mix those together, and that is going to become my seed starter mix. Now, it's not the same thing that Blake's doing. He's adding some other things to make the soil better for his need. But one thing that I want to mention is I was having a hard time trying to locate this coarse sand. I was getting stuck on the idea of going to a nursery to buy this stuff. After all, it's seed starting mix. And Blake was the one who said, well, basically think outside of that box and start looking at different places. And the first place I checked was a mulching company just down the road from me. And they said, sure, they had sand, but they were only willing to sell it to me by the pickup truck load. So I don't have a pickup truck. There was no way for me to get that. I've learned now that I probably would use that much, but they would not sell me sand in any other method than a pickup truck load. So I called around, and while it may seem obvious, there is a company in town here called Blackwell Sand Company. But just from the size of their facility, because I've seen it before, I presume that they were really only interested in commercial buyers. In other words, I expected them to say, bring a dump truck, not a pickup. However, I got the exact opposite expectation. I called them up, and they said that they would do $20 for whatever I could haul off the site, that their charge was $20 for a pickup, and if I wanted to haul it out in 5-gallon buckets, that was fine with them. So I did the math on it, looked at how much sand was costing from big box stores, and said, for 5 gallons of sand, and if I was going to get 4 5-gallon buckets, it seemed to work out okay. So that's what I was going to do. I took 4 5-gallon buckets down to the sand company and told the guy, spoke with somebody on the phone, and this is what I'm doing. And he said, well, it's not going to be 20 bucks if that's all you're going to get, maybe more like 10. So I said, okay, well, if that's fair with you. And so he told me where to go and the sand to get. Now I chose this sand. It's washed river sand. It is more coarse than a place sand, but it's not bleached. This has got the nice red color, and I just liked it. I don't know, he said that the white sand that was there had just been bleached, and something tells me that this is probably better for minerals and nutrients, but that is nothing more than my logic. I've got no scientific basis on it. Well, anyway, he watched me fill my buckets, and I came back inside to pay, and I handed him a $10 bill, and I said, there, are we fair? And he said, no, for as much as you got, hold on, let me see if I've got some change. So he goes into his change drawer, he finds 5 $1 bills and hands them to me. So I essentially went on spending $20 for what was supposed to be a pickup truck load to $1.25 each for 5 gallons worth of sand. So I got 20 gallons worth of this washed sand for $5. I'm pretty happy about that. And now I can move forward and make all sorts of seed starter mix. Blake told me something else that I was not thinking about ahead of time. I told him I had a concern about adding this much sand into my soil. And he said, well, don't you have some pretty clay soil there? And I said, matter of fact, I do. It gets pretty rock solid clay. And he said, well, don't you remember that we're looking for a mixture that's sand, organic material, and clay? And I said, of course. You're absolutely right. That is the kind of mix I'm looking for. So by starting these seeds and then transplanting them in, I kind of look at it as amending my soil to try to bring it around to the sort of soil structure I'm looking for. It's one more way that I can sort of bring the soil around a little more quickly. I'm still mulching, chopping, and dropping, and all those other wonderful things, even in adding compost directly to the ground, but I think this might be another way for me to help bring the soil around. So with that said, I'm going to get started actually planting some seeds. Today's an unseasonably warm day here in central Mississippi. It's 71 degrees. Now, that said, the forecast is still calling for a few freezes later in the week. It's just unseasonably warm today. So what am I going to do? Well, rather than sit here and actually show you all of the plantings, why don't I just tell you what I'm going to plant? These are just the varieties that I need to get started early, and they do better here as a transplant rather than by direct seed. So this is some seed that I need to find the story out again. I got these from Camelot Hills. You guys remember them over on their YouTube channel. He gave me these from someone who gave them to him that's growing this sort of pepper in northern Mississippi, and they're supposed to be like a sweet and spicy mix. They're not entirely sweet, they're not entirely spicy. They're sort of that middle range road. So we're going to grow a few of these and see how they go. I've also got the Bolivian rainbow and the golden habanero. You know, one thing we learned last year is we don't really have a need for the super hots. The ghost pepper that I grew and the Carolina Reaper that I grew really just don't have a place here for us. So the golden habanero is going to be as hot as I bother going this year. Most of what I grow is going to be this, the Tabasco pepper. These are the ones that my son likes to eat right off of the plant. We can use them in more of a culinary use and things like that, along with the long ray cayenne pepper. So that's all of the peppers that we're going to start. Well, I misspoke. I've also got some green bell pepper. We're going to start those. Those are seeds from here from last year. Now moving into tomatoes. I'm gonna regrow the yellow pear tomato. I love these things. They're that little cherry-sized tomato. They're very prolific, and I can just pop them off and eat them left and right. And I'm looking forward to seeing them grow good again this year. But you know, I've got to have a slicer because I really like to have them on burgers and things like that. So I'm going to try the Mortgage Lifter this year. It's a pink colored beef steak that gets a lot of respect. So I'm going to give that a try. And just in case it actually works for me this year, I'm going to try the Amish paste. I tried this last year over on the container trellis and it didn't do so great. We're going to give it another try in a different environment and see if it'll do better. And last but not least is broccoli. I can't pronounce it. It's the D-I-C-I-C-C-I-O variety. And we're going to grow that. This will go in the ground a whole lot quicker than the tomatoes and peppers will, but it does need to go ahead and get started ahead of time. Now everything that I've mentioned is an annual plant, but one thing that you'll notice as you stay with us throughout the rest of the season is we're making a transition. We really want to get away from most of these annuals and get toward a perennial system. And you're going to start to see that. You're going to start to see us putting in a whole lot more perennial plants. We've already have a bunch of blueberries, fruit trees, blackberries, raspberries, and things like that in the ground, and there's just more to come. So stay tuned and look forward to that. So with the unusually warm weather here and spring not too far around the corner, make sure you go down in the comments below and let me know what you're doing. What are you starting ahead of time? What varieties are you interested in? Are you trying something that's tried and true, or are you going up and experimenting a little bit and trying something different? Let me know what your thoughts are on this seed starting mix, and let me know what you're doing. Maybe there's something that works better in your location than what I'm doing in mine. As always, I really appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you next time.